Okay, so let's look at this building I found on Google Maps. I was following this abandoned rail line that they're tearing out in only Virginia, and come across this building, and it's got a unique look to it. The doors that open up split in the middle and open left and right on the truck bay side. I thought that's a really unique feature. And originally, when I found the building, I mean, I zoomed all around it and checked it out. The more I looked at it, the more I thought, I really like that building. So I decided I was going to model it. Most of the things I model are smaller than this. Most of them are houses, or roadside or railside structures, electrical boxes and stuff like that. I have made one building that was bigger than this, but most of them are just single piece models, and are usually limited by my printer size. Now I got two printers. I got a resin printer, and I have a filament printer. And filament printer is a Anycubic Mega Zero 2, and it's got a pretty big bed on it. I think it's 12 inches, so it can print a large building on it in one piece. So I'm kind of sizing this building up to do that. Um, so we're just measuring the building, checking tries, seeing how big it is here. And now I'm seeing how the doors are going to be laid out on the building. I'm going to take another closer look at them so I can see that one door on the end uh, opens up on halfway to the end and opens up halfway into the space. So that's telling me that's a 4-foot opening with a 4-foot wall. And I decided that, double 4-foot openings makes 8 foot. So we're going to come on down through here, and we're going to copy and repeat this over and over, try to get enough doors to go down the whole length of the way. Now I'm just counting out a scale 8 foot between the doors as I do this. Now here at the end, it's a little bit different, and it's Google Maps being off a little bit on that scale, or my guess at the door sizes are a little bit off, and it doesn't really matter. We just adjust it one way or the other as we want, and go with it. We're not really trying to copy the building exactly. We're trying to capture the feel of the building. As I keep going back to the building, I keep looking at the building. In front of the building is a man door and 2 sliding doors. They made the sliding doors smaller on the end of the building, and there's just a single door instead of ones that open left and right. I kind of like the look of the way it opens to the left and the right, so I'm going to keep my building with the double doors on the front too, so they look the same. Now I'm going to put a wall here on the end, and later on you're going to see we're going to zoom around from the other road, and we're going to see that there's a door on the end, so I'm going to come back and I'll model that in later. Now I'm on the rail side, and there's bigger doors and less of them, so we're going to guess at the spacing between these doors too. And however big the door is, the space beside the door has to be that big, because you have to be able to slide the door all the way back and out of your way. So all I have to work with right now is I know there's 5 doors on this rail side of the building. So I'm going to adjust these doors a little bit, make them bigger, and make the space bigger between them, and see if I can't get it scaled to a size that I like. Now I'm counting out the spaces between them, making sure I got enough scale feet between them, and see where we fall. And I'm pretty close, so I'm just going to finagle them open a little bit more. And it's about this time I realized that I made a mistake, that I got 5 walls and 4 doors when there's supposed to be 5 doorways. it's funny on the end. There's a man door on the end. You think that would be an office, but right around the corner from the man door is just an open rail dock door. So the man door just opens you into the immediate warehouse. So there is no office space in this warehouse. So it must have been, another building there someplace at one time for the office administration use. So now I got the rail door spaced out like I think looks like the real life picture. Then I got thinking, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, use my artistic license, and shrink this building so that I can print on my Elegoo Saturn resin printer. This is a model that I plan on adding to the website to sell, and on buildings that I sell, I'm going to try and start using only resin models for those buildings, since it is a better detail printer. I just made a little sliver of a wall section there to give something to do to help glue the door to in the corner there if you have the door shut. Now I'm adding the doorway on the end. Let's delete these others. I always move them out of my way. Initially, when I'm modeling something, I try not to delete objects. I try so I can reuse them. So here I've taken the wall section. Now I'm sizing it out to be a door section, and the doors have to overlap the opening a little bit, so I'm making them bigger. You want to be able to cover over the door or the opening, and not fit inside the door opening since they slide left and right. Now we're going to take one of these doors and we're going to take a negative pattern here, and we're going to make seams between the wood panels. So we just lay them out here on the grid. They're spacing like we want, which is about, I'm using a scale foot. And we're putting 0.2 millimeters depth and 0.2 millimeter width on these lines. A lot of times on like my brick patterns, I'll use 0.1 millimeter, and it does show up just fine on the resin printer, but by the time you start painting it, the paint fills in the gap and makes it disappear. So 0.2 is probably the smallest detail you want to go with. So now we're just adjusting a little bit so that the corner at the top and the corner at the bottom is about evenly spaced apart. So now we got our door panel modeled. And we'll put it here and make a copy of it side to the right. Now they're going the same direction, so I'm going to mirror this panel, which is just flipping it left and right. So now in the center of the doorway, the diagonal lines are going to the center, going up. And that's that was a unique feature of this building. It really caught my eye, was the door panels. Now it's just simply copy and pasting stuff to make the doors fit. Now there's a mistake I made where the man door, I made a sliding door and overlapped the opening. You'll see me come back later and make that a flush door and then put some trim around it. At this point, it's a lot of just roughing everything in at this point. Now I'm going to come around here. I'm going to take a look at the end of the building, and I can see that there's just one double door on the end of the building. It's in a state of disrepair on the original building because it's broken and a big opening in it. make the wall section a little bit taller because it's going to have a porch come over it. And you can see that it's taller than the porch from the in building, because you can see there's a piece of trim board going down where the porch is on the front. So that's how I knew I had to make my building taller. Now the ends, because there's a gable end, I know that's going to be taller still, so I'm just kind of guessing at the height right now on how high I want the gable ends, and I can adjust that later. So now I'm coming back to the front of the building, try and get the closest view of it. And I'm going to make the doors for the rail docks. And again, they got to be bigger than the opening, so I've copied a wall space and I'm stretching it out. Now I'm going to pull it down here on the ground, and I'm going to make my 0.2 millimeter lines so we have the texture in the doorway. And you can select several things at once and copy and paste many of them at one time. Now I'm just getting them lined up on the grid so I know my spacing's right. And you gotta make it, when you're going diagonal, you gotta make it wider and then taller than the surface you're applying it to. Because when you turn it 45 degrees, you're going to lose a lot of height and stuff by what you can fit in there. You see at this, even though the lines are twice as long as the wall section, they're almost too small to fit that area. So then I did the same thing, I adjusted so the top corners were basically equally spaced. Now I don't show it after the video is made and I print my first copy of everything. I'm going to make a track that goes over these doors so that you'll be able to move the door up inside the track. And I made the doors the same thickness, which is 1 millimeter, as they're holding the track. So I come back, and when I make my second set of doors, I'll make the top 1 millimeter, 0.2 millimeters thinner, so that they slip up in that 1 millimeter groove. Because I had to sand on the first set of doors to make them work right. And after I make this, I do make several models of this and fix things on each model until I get it all right. So here I'm making the track that's going to cover the doors a little bit to give the doors something to recess up into. And if you ever seen a pole barn, they have basically the same thing in real life. That there's usually a metal flap over the sliding rail slots. And this is just my version of that. Then I'm thinking about what I'm going to do on the front of the building. That's when I realized that the door needs to be flush with the wall, because it's not a sliding door, it's a swinging door. And I moved the door over a little bit to make it fit in that slot, so that the sliding door next to it would have enough wall space to slide open without interfering with the swinging of the man door. So now I'm getting ready to do the wood seams on the wall. So I'm just copy and pasting the negative space wide enough to cover the whole front of the building. And when I get taller, I will turn it up 90 degrees, slide up against the building, and then join them together. We'll do the second end before I join them together. Getting all the wall spaces and not the door spaces. There we go, we joined them together. When you got a set of these lines together, rather than remake them each time, just copy and paste them. And you want to make sure you do that before you join them to the existing wall panels, so then you got to start over because you locked them into the wall, and it's an easy mistake to make. Now we space these out. We're trying to get enough of them to go on the long edge of the building. And sometimes I get a little anal on spacing, make sure they're exactly right. And on N-scale, when it's 1/160th scale, you really don't notice anything if it's a few tenths of a millimeter one way or the other. But it is hard to realize that as a modeler, because you want things to be as perfect as possible when you're modeling something. So here I've copied and pasted the whole line once I got it in position. And now I'll adjust it into the wall, select the wall sections, and join them all together, and do the same thing on the other side. Now, at this point I'm feeling pretty good because it hasn't taken very long, and we've actually got all the walls up, all the doors up, all the textures on it. And I'm just looking at everything, trying to see if there's anything I missed, like the track at the front of the building. And it doesn't need to be as long because it's not going to slide over the man door, so I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. Thinking it doesn't need to be that wide. And now I'm going to do the trim for the doors. And again, I try to go 0.2 or 0.3 millimeters thick on trim, for the reason that if you're painting the trim a different color, it even though it's in scale it's too thick, it really makes it a whole lot easier to hit with a brush and not get on the door. So it's just a nice thing to make the details snap out a little bit and make it easier to paint. So now I'm going to make the door, and I'm realizing here that I want the door taller than the wall, which means the gable end is too short. And the way we do the roof line is we take our point in the middle, and then we flip two sections over and make them negatives, and then I apply the negatives to the walls, not to the roof. So now we've taken away the tall peaks on the left and right side of the building. And there I realized that I'm taller on my roof than the walls, so I got to raise the walls up. And now when I join them together, the roof will be the roof peak won't be any taller than the wall peak, so you'll see the lines of lumber all the way up to the roof line. And because this is a big structure, I go ahead and I make trusses all the way down through here. That's going to do a couple things. It's going to make the model stiffer. It's going to make the roof more it's not going to be as flexible. So you really don't need the trusses inside the building, because you're never going to see inside the building. But the extra strength from tying the side of the walls of the model together so they don't flex, the great big long roof sections will be stronger and they won't warp down to help it for printing the model. But sometimes on some models I do get details of putting floor choices in, and then roof choices, and really get into modeling sometimes. It is a lot of fun to make something to scale and really as exact as possible. And you notice I pulled out one truss and put it on the side because I know many times on here I'm going to need some that same truss repeated over and over to get the roof formed up right. So rather than try and scale it out each time individually, I got one to work with that I can just keep copying and pasting. You'll see now. I'm going to put it in here. And coming out over the front of the roof. And all I did was cut the end of that piece off so that I can make the porch roof. And again, same thing. I'm going to put joists out here on the porch roof, and that's going to make that little hanging piece on the porch stronger and able to be printed without warping. Keep going back to the original picture to see what it looks like on real life, and then try and print mine to look like that. Now I'm trying to scale this up. You got this when you look at the triangle for that roof truss. It comes down to a perfect point. And if you look at the edge of your house outside on your roof, you have a straight edge piece at the gutter roof fastens to you. That's called a fascia board. And it's real important that you have the fascia boards on these models, and you don't have it just come out to a perfect point. That perfect point will warp really bad. So this is the actual roof piece. It's 1 millimeter thick, which is like the minimum size you want to go on any kind of wall space or roof space or floor space. And sometimes we want to go thicker than that. But I've changed the color so we can see the roof better. So now I drag this out left and right, and I've raised up 1 millimeter so it sits on them porch roof joists, and that's the porch roof. And now I'm going to take another copy of it, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm changing it to yellow for the roof. It's nice to have different color features, so I usually use yellow for the roofs. And here I'm adding the extra millimeter to the bottom of it. And I make my negative space and slide in there underneath that 1 millimeter down. I join them together, and there I have the shape of the roof panels. Now I know that needs to come out and overhang for the soffit a little bit, so I hang it over one side and then I hang it over the other side. And I adjust it back and forth so I get them basically equal spaced on both ends. And then I realized that the two porch corners are both hanging out like 4 foot away from the wall, so I had to bring the end out. And now I'm going to cut a negative space to cut the porch roof back. And then there's a little bit the same process here on take away the main roof from the porch roof, and that's going to give it where they're both joining at a hip, which is a 45-degree angle where they both tie together there. And I'm just trying to get it as close as possible to being in line with the very tip of the corner. And now where the roof is overhanging, where I've cut out there, we'll just make that disappear too. a little space sticking out of the porch through the main roof on the right side. So we make our negative space and combine them, and that makes that little tip sticking out just disappear. And I realize I'm a little bit off here, so I'm going to back up and stretch these out to make them fit in line where they need to be. And I'm looking at it and almost got it. 1 more millimeter. There. Now the roof is perfectly in line with the hip. Now, a lot of times I put some kind of roof details on these buildings. I don't think this building would have had any roof details on it originally. It doesn't have any in the picture. There's no, chimneys or vents or anything in it. So I don't really know what could be appropriate to put on it. So I'm just going to leave it with nothing on top of the roof for roof details. Here I'm putting all the door panels out here on the end. And so I'll print them all at one time separately from the other model. Later on I come back, and after I print the first batch, I take all these and I set them up in sets of 3, two small doors and 1 big door, and then I print them out, and I print them at basically a 45-degree angle, and they set up and are easier to paint that way. And it just so works out that you need 7 sets of the 3 doors. Now here's some pictures. Here's the first printing with all the support still on it, and this is probably the second print. I've adjusted some stuff. I don't have enough lip. I can tell I don't have enough fascia on there to make it stop warping. So I'll come back and I'll adjust that. And I realized that I didn't put any door detail on the man door, like hinges or doorknobs or anything. So I come back and I adjust that. And every time I print one, I find more details I need to add. There, I've painted it. I'm scaling it with a box card beside it. I made a base for it. Nothing special on the base, just concrete piers. I've added the doors to it. I've added rust to the roof. Black washed the whole building so the lines pop out real nice. And that's basically the process of taking a picture, turning it into a building. Thank you.